Imagine a single voice so raw, so unapologetic, that it terrified politicians, outraged parents, and sent shockwaves through the entire music industry. A voice that could fill arenas with roaring fans, yet in the same breath, trigger Senate hearings, Secret Service investigations, and nationwide protests. A voice so dangerous that America's most powerful institutions tried to silence it not once, not twice, but over and over again. In the late 1990s, this voice belonged to a scrawny kid from Detroit, a kid who grew up poor, bullied, and ignored. No one saw him coming, and yet, when he stepped to the mic, he unleashed a storm that no one in power could control. His alter ego was twisted, violent, outrageous, and hilarious, the kind of character who said everything society didn't dare to say out loud. For some, he was an artistic genius. For others, he was the devil in headphones. The media called him poison, parents called him a threat, politicians called him dangerous, and still, millions of fans called him the truth. That kid's name was Marshall Mathers. The world would come to know him as Eminem, and the moment he introduced Slim Shady, the music industry realized they weren't just dealing with another rapper, they were dealing with a cultural bomb, ticking louder with every verse. What followed was a war unlike anything the music world had ever seen. Eminem versus the music industry, a battle over art, censorship, freedom of speech, and the soul of a generation. Eminem's story begins long before the fame. He was born in 1972 in St. Joseph, Missouri, and raised in Detroit, Michigan. His childhood was anything but easy. Poverty, bullying, and a broken family left scars that would later bleed into his music. In those years, Marshall Mathers felt invisible, but when he rapped, people noticed. And he noticed something else. His words had power. When he created Slim Shady, he tapped into something explosive. Slim Shady wasn't just an alter ego, he was the embodiment of anger, frustration, and rebellion. He said things Marshall couldn't. He made jokes too dark for polite society. He painted pictures too violent for radio. But he also gave millions of kids who felt voiceless someone to identify with. Slim Shady was every misfit's superhero or villain, depending on who you asked. By 1999, Eminem had caught the attention of Dr. Dre, and soon after, the Slim Shady LP was released. It was shocking, hilarious, and unapologetically offensive. Songs about murder, drugs, and celebrity takedowns hit the airwaves, and people couldn't get enough. The album went triple platinum, and suddenly this white kid from Detroit wasn't just a rapper. He was the most controversial new voice in America. But success came with a price. Almost immediately, groups like the Parents Music Resource Center and conservative watchdog organizations demanded his albums be pulled from stores. They argued that Eminem glorified violence, promoted drug use, and degraded women, but the controversy only fueled his rise. Every protest sign, every angry news segment, every attempt to shut him down only made kids more determined to buy his CDs. By the year 2000, Eminem was untouchable. His next release, the Marshall Mathers LP, sold nearly 2 million copies in its first week, a record at the time. It was the moment Slim Shady went from cult hero to cultural juggernaut. But the lyrics were even darker, sharper, and more controversial. Songs like Kill You and Kim horrified parents. Lines about politicians, celebrities, and even the president drew national headlines. And that's when things escalated. This wasn't just angry parents anymore. The government itself was paying attention. In 2000, Second Lady Lynn Cheney stood on the Senate floor and publicly condemned Eminem, calling his lyrics violent and dangerous. The Secret Service investigated him for threats against President George W. Bush. Imagine that. A rapper from Detroit now considered a threat to national security. But Eminem didn't back down. He fought back the only way he knew how, through his music. On tracks like The Way I Am, he threw the criticism back in the faces of his attackers, unapologetically declaring that he was a product of the culture they had created. His message was clear: you can censor the radio, you can protest the concerts, but you can't silence me. And the kids believed him. To them, Eminem wasn't just a rapper, he was a symbol. A middle finger raised high in the face of authority. He was rebellion. In human form, his concerts became arenas of catharsis, places where kids who felt ignored could scream every lyric word for word. For every angry parent burning his CDs, there were 5 teenagers memorizing every line. The music industry found itself in a strange position. Eminem was too controversial to promote safely, but too talented and profitable to abandon. Radio stations censored his songs heavily, but they couldn't stop playing him. MTV blurred his videos, but they couldn't stop airing them. The harder they tried to control him, the bigger he became. Hollywood couldn't resist either. In 2002, Eminem starred in 8 Mile, a semi-autobiographical film about a struggling rapper in Detroit. It wasn't just a movie, it was proof that Eminem wasn't a gimmick. He wasn't just shock value. He was an artist with depth, with pain, and with a story worth telling. The film won him an Academy Award for Lose Yourself, making him the first rapper to ever take home an Oscar. From Detroit's trailer parks to Hollywood's red carpets, Eminem had arrived, but behind the success was chaos. Fame didn't silence his critics, and it didn't fix his life. Eminem battled addiction, lawsuits, custody fights, and a media that seemed determined to portray him as dangerous. The controversies kept coming, but so did the hits. The Eminem Show and Encore proved he wasn't slowing down, even as the weight of fame nearly broke him. By the late 2000s, something remarkable happened. The industry stopped trying to censor Eminem. They realized it was pointless. Every ban, every protest, every warning sticker had only made him more famous. Eminem had won the war by refusing to quit. He didn't bow to the pressure. He didn't water down his lyrics. He stood firm in the storm and came out the other side stronger. Today, Eminem is one of the best-selling artists in history, with over 220 million records sold worldwide. He has 15 Grammy Awards, an Oscar, and the respect of generations of fans. But beyond the numbers and the trophies lies something more important. Eminem proved that free speech and music cannot be silenced. He pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable, and in doing so, he changed the industry forever. Without Eminem, modern music might look very different. His battles with censorship opened doors for artists across genres to be more honest, more raw and more fearless. He made it clear that art isn't supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to challenge, provoke, and sometimes disturb. Eminem versus the music industry wasn't just about rap. It was about the right of an artist to speak their truth. It was about rebellion against a system that tried to silence voices. It didn't like and in that war, the kid from Detroit, the misfit no one believed in, stood tall and proved a lesson the world will never forget. You can try to censor a man, but you can't censor the truth.